Welcome to the Liberated Life. Get ready to free your mind, body, and spirit in business and pleasure. Now here's your host, Robin Quinn Keene.
Hi, and welcome to today's micro episode of The Liberated Life. Last week I began a new series based on my card deck that's going to be released any day here now. If you go to deckable.com, you can find the trigger warning deck. You can search for my name or trigger warning and go check it out. I'm really excited to be part of this huge project that started as a much smaller project for a guy named Nick Kellett back in the spring or maybe late winter, and he hoped to have maybe 100 contributors to this new app called Deckable, and I believe we're up to 300 contributors and maybe 1,000 decks, something like that. Really crazy. Really delighted to be on board with that, and I have the trigger warning deck, parenting archetype styles deck, and raising quit-proof kids decks all up and available soon, or maybe even by the time you hear this podcast. So exciting. All right, let's talk about today's trigger, which is criticism. And the card says, I feel criticized. Boy, that's a potent one, isn't it? Nobody likes to be criticized. And I can tell you a really funny story that I will share with you. I never used to tell anybody this, but it's pretty comical looking back. At the time, it was mortifying. But I didn't really learn how to take criticism very well growing up, and I didn't get criticized a lot either. I was a pretty even keel kid, very involved in my community, always creating communities around me, always finding ways to have more fun than humanly possible. So I didn't get faulted for a lot. And if I did, it was usually from my parents. That's where I got in trouble. Anyway, so just all of that to say, I wasn't used to criticism. I got some of it when I was a freshman in college. I went away to Westmont College in Santa Barbara, private Christian college, and I had some really bizarre situations with roommates and felt criticized. Perhaps it was more of self-criticism, but you know, we've all learned how to or not how to deal with criticism. So it can be a big one. My brief story is one of my friends that was a roommate of mine after college, she came home one day having gotten her hair done, and she had this beautiful hair, very fine, very almost white blonde hair, and she always wore it kind of in the same way. And when she came home, she had it different. And I simply said to her, "Oh, wow, that's really different." Not in a critical way, I was just surprised. And what she said to me was, "Oh my gosh, Robin, you always have to say something like that." I was so shocked that she said that to me that I fainted. Yep. I was in the hallway and I fainted. I fell down and hit my head. It was a brief moment, but I literally fainted because I was so shocked by the criticism. So just saying, if you don't have an easy time dealing with criticism, I feel you. All right, well, let's talk about it. When you feel criticized, and remember, we're talking about the feeling of something. We never want to associate with the thing. Like when I say, I feel angry, I'm not anger. When I feel criticized, I'm not criticism. That's a little bit hard. That's more of a stretch, but you understand what I'm saying. It's a feeling. So just think about when you feel criticized and what you're actually feeling. And what I was actually feeling in that moment with my roommate was judgment. I just felt that she hated me. I felt judged. I felt shocked, but a bunch of stuff. So when you feel criticized, and you can think about it here, like when was the last time you felt criticized, and just connect with that feeling you got when somebody criticized you. And then I want you just to be with that for a minute, whatever that feeling is that came up for you, and then take a breath. And just notice if you're aware that you may have some judgment about yourself in that specific area. Now, you may not. You may not have any judgment. And I don't know if I had judgment. I was just so shocked by the criticism that I didn't have any way to process it. But sometimes I've noticed when I feel criticized, it's because I know I have something inside of me that I experience as a weakness, not in a bad way, but a tender spot, a little weakness, a little insecurity inside of me. And so the sting is much sharper when somebody criticizes me and there's a place for it to land in that little stingy spot, that little wound that I have, that little place of fear or insecurity. So if you can find that, the question then, is it possible for you to let go of that judgment of yourself in that area? Or what do you need to do to soothe that wound now that you're aware of it? Now you can see it. It is a trigger, something connected and had an impact. That's a perfect time then to bring it up and see if you can figure out why it's there. And if it's judgment of yourself, perfect. What are you judging yourself for? What are you judging yourself for? The next question might be, and you can journal about this. So the questions are, what am I judging myself for? Can I forgive myself for whatever that thing is, even for being tender? Can you forgive yourself for being tender? Can you forgive yourself for being reactive? Can you forgive yourself for that little place of what you might consider a weakness or maybe even a fault that you see in yourself? And how would your life change if you just stopped judging that part of you? Then the final question that you can write down for yourself is, what if I could catch myself in judgment today and let the thought go? Now, I have no idea if you're criticized on a regular basis, and I certainly hope and pray that you are not. But when there are times when somebody says something to you and it feels like criticism, it's a great time if you have a minute just to go, oh, how do I actually feel about that in myself? So let's just say somebody criticized the rings you're wearing. If you don't care and you love your rings and you're not insecure about the rings you're wearing, then when somebody criticizes you, you can usually just be like, that's interesting. Okay, whatever, right? You can usually let it go. But let's say you're a mom and somebody makes a snide comment about the way you're raising your kid or the way your child is dressed today or, what you did or didn't put in their lunchbox. I don't know. That is harder. And the reason that's harder, or it may be harder, maybe it's not, but it is for me. The reason it's harder is because I already have some insecurities around what I dressed my kid in that day. Or I might have some judgment like, gosh, my mom would have made me a better lunch than I made for my kid today. Or maybe, yeah, I'm not a perfect parent. I'm still learning and I don't know how to handle my kid when they melt down in the grocery store. So the judgment lands differently than if it's something you don't care about it. And that's the opportunity. That's the opportunity to catch that when it's happening and realize I'm judging myself. I'm critical of myself. And I certainly don't need anybody piling on more criticism. So see if you can connect with that tender spot, forgive yourself, notice that it's there, and love yourself anyway. All right, so today's card was, I feel criticized. I think we've all felt it, and this is just a little step in the direction of noticing what it's actually about. If you really like this kind of conversation, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I have 40 of these, and I'm sure I'll be interspersing with other guests at some point. But right now, I'm really focused on my new project, Our Table of Joy, where you can find Suzette Farah, Jen Snoxel, and I in a new community helping people step more into their highest self through exercises like I just did with you. Really, that's what it's all about, learning to feel calmer, feel happier, be able to find peace and enjoyment in your life. I have one more very exciting project that I'll be releasing probably within the month, and I'll be sharing that with you on another episode of The Liberated Life soon. Thanks again for listening. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to get on my calendar, I'll put my link in the show notes. If you have trouble with these kinds of things and you'd like to talk to me, I'm really happy to give you a half an hour of my time just to see what I can do to support you. And you might want to come over to Our Table of Joy. You can check it out for 2 weeks for free. We have a lot of stuff going on in there for people who are interested in growing. All right. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can also get more great information at quittingculture.com.